Thank you. I got a sandwich ordering too. I assume. I have a sandwich. Yeah, it's good.
Everybody, if you want to try the Maker's Mark grill over there, we're going to quit ordering food right now. These will be the last orders because it's going to start in 20 minutes, okay? We didn't hear you. What's up here? You have all over here. Trying to figure that out.
I like grass.
Thank you. And then bring me in and see you guys.
not here. I got a cheeseburger and fries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's good. That's why it's a
little bit
good.
of coffee.
Yeah. Oh, it's not like an IPA like harsh bitter.
See, I don't care for.
Can you guys hear me in the back? All right, please receiver. You're in the back. So you're about as far away as you go. You're going to go there. All right, so we're going to kick off here in 5 minutes. You gotta be honest now. Okay. All right. No more food orders. No more food orders. We gotta get the fan turned off. Bourbon is that table and that table. Yeah, the little tables. They're not. That's okay. That's quite all right. I just wanted you to know because I just happened to see you over there. Okay, we need 4 over there. Raise your hand if you don't have the first expression. Test. All right, raise your hand if you do not have the first expression. We'll get those to you. We're going to get this thing kicked off. You all have it? You don't have everything in here?
Who are you arguing with? Oh, why do you put your hands on your hips? You were standing there.
Okay, this is difficult for you all. This is for a high IQ group, but I'm not sure where we stand here. But oh shit, Ron.
So what we've done is we've actually, for some of you, about a third of you, we have shared the second expression with. We're not going to send them all out right now. Do not confuse the first and the second because you won't get to understand the different expressions from Blue Run that we're going to taste. So just keep that organized. Once we taste the first, we'll then send out the second. Once we taste the second, what happens then, Ron? We get funny. Oh boy. We give out the third, and after we give out the third, what do we do then, Ron? We get the fourth. There you go. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Big Bourbon Club August 10th meeting. We're glad to have you here. We have an absolutely perfect day. All we need is a football game out there, but it's perfect. So raise your hand if you are not a member of the Big Bourbon Club. That's all right. Raise it high. I'm not going to make fun of you, Sean or Bill or... okay, so if you're not a member and you would like to join, there is a QR code on your table. I would love it if you would join. We have a free membership, and we also have some premium memberships. You can check that out, but we'd love to have you. Raise your hand if you're a top shelf member. Bunch of you guys. Those are premium members. Okay, Mark, thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. And we're glad you're here, too. We're going to introduce you a little bit later. But we're glad you're all here. You all excited about Blue Run? All right, Shaylin and Chrissy, watch this. Have you ever had Blue Run before? All right, let's ask it differently. Have you ever not tasted Blue Run in your life? Wow, we've got 2/3 of people we're going to convert over to lovers today. Have you ever not heard of Blue Run? So almost all of you know of it. Many of you have not had it. So we've got a great test group for us today. We're going to have a lot of fun. We are live streaming out to all of the members, the 6,000 members of the Big Bourbon Club in 50 states. As of last week, we have a new member in Chile, is how he pronounces it. So we're in 15 countries. We're glad you're here. We also have the Big Bourbon Club barrel pick bottles for sale in the back. And as we typically do, not always, but typically they're for sale here relative to what they sell for through the DTC site. So if you'd like some of those, the one we're sharing today so you can taste is the Maker's Mark pick. It's absolutely fabulous. It's called Summer Lovin' because we knew it was being released in the summer. So we picked what we thought was going to be a lighter, more florally type of expression, and it's fantastic. So be sure to get your barrel pick bottle if you're interested. And let's have a lot of fun. We've got a great guest today. Shaylin Gammon is the national brand
Head of Whiskey Innovation.
Head of Whiskey Innovation, excuse me, and Chrissy Cortez. Chrissy, are you there? Come introduce yourself. So we've got great people from Blue Run. Let me ask you a question. Does anybody, don't say it, do you know who now owns Blue Run? If you don't, raise your hand. Okay. Do you know how long Blue Run has been a brand? All right, we got a lot to talk about. So I better get off the stage. So Shaylin, thanks for coming.
Of course.
We're glad to have you here.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for having us. I'm so excited to be here. The weather could not have been more perfect today. I can't believe it. Sorry. Okay, I will try to speak up with my microphone and maybe a little help. So Chrissy is going to come out in a minute and give you kind of the brand story, but just so you guys know, I'm the head of Whiskey Innovation Development. I was the first official hire at Blue Run. There were 5 co-founders, which you get to hear about, and basically they were doing some amazing things and had some success off the bat, but they needed a scientist on board, someone that's been doing this a really long time, to come and show them how to take liquid and create products out of it. A little bit on me and my background. I have been in the industry since 2014. Prior to that, I was doing research and development in the food world, and then I moved over to alcohol in 2014. And I worked for Campari, so you might be familiar. I did all the innovation for Wild Turkey, Russell's Reserve, tequila, vodka, RTDs, etc. So really got to take basically a secondary education off the bat with them. And that includes everything from basically inventory and tasting through it. I have a very, very sensitive nose and palate. So you can ask me any questions about that. I'm one of those kind of freaks of nature where I've melded my this talent, I guess, so to speak, with my job. So it's worked out really well. So in 2021, Blue Run approached me and asked if I'd come on board. And basically, they had barrels, they didn't know what to do with it. And so I was happy to come on board about a year later. We courted each other for a long time, and the rest is history. So, Chrissy, you want to tell the story of the brand?
From all different walks of life. We had one that was a lawyer, 2 were brothers that grew up in Georgetown, Kentucky, politics, and then we also had someone who was a creative director for Nike. So upon coming together, the goal was to bring bourbon back to Georgetown, Kentucky. Jesse and John McKnight, that's where they grew up. They grew up a stone's throw from where Elijah Craig had set up his church. Right in the middle of town was a spring called the Royal Spring. It is filled with limestone, so when the sun hits it, it hits this beautiful blue, crystal blue color. And Jesse and John, growing up, often referred to that as the Blue Run. So when it came time for all 5 founders to come and pull together, it was like, okay, so we have a bourbon. What are we going to go ahead and name this bourbon? It turned out to be Blue Run. Again, paying homage to where Jesse and John grew up and taking that step to bringing bourbon back to Georgetown. Fast forward to 2019. Obviously, we were in some really wild and crazy times and really had no idea what to expect or what was coming over the next several years for us. But in 2019, we came out strong and we had launched some expressions that were online. And then from there, 2020 happened. As most of us would like to forget that time, that did happen. We had to launch and still move forward to launching a bourbon brand in the middle of a pandemic. So our original plans were thrown right out the window, and we had to turn around and make a lot of different shifts. As with everybody else, that's exactly what we did. But we continued to push and we continued to grow as we were going through. The very first expression, probably I would say like early spring of 2021, just as we were starting to come back out of a lot of that stuff, Reflection 1 was released. And that was released in the fact that the founders, as we were going through COVID, as most people, they were going through very challenging and difficult times with family. And the reflection is just that. It was something that was simple, it was easy, it was a way to bond with people, friends, and family and come together. And that's where the name Reflection came from. Because it was something that, although most of us want to forget that time, it is to reflect on the good that did come out of it. It brought us closer as community, it brought us closer together as family and friends. And it is something that moved forward when Kaylin came on and went into Reflection 2. As we go through that, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But as Blue Run has grown leaps and bounds over the last few years, we have just constantly been full throttle, foot on the gas, and let's keep moving forward. In the spring of 2023, we announced the fact we were moving forward to building a distillery in Georgetown. Again, the goal was to be able to come back and bring bourbon back to Georgetown. A couple months later, we made another big splash, and that splash was the fact that Molson Coors purchased us. They acquired us in September, or actually August of last year. We just celebrated our 1 year with Molson Coors. So we're excited to be part of the brand and expand upon the spirits portfolio under the Coors name. So we have continued to move forward over the last year. The last year we have we have continued with our limited releases. We have our core 3 items, which is going to be our Reflection, our High Rye Bourbon, our Emerald Rye, and again, our limited time offerings that we have throughout the year. Today, we will be sampling one of those, which is Trifecta. So we're really excited to share that with you all today. And then I'm going to bring it back to Shay.
Sorry for all, it's going to take a minute for everybody to get their samples. I know some people missing a couple here and there. And I might repeat some things about the brand, but one of the things I want you to walk away understanding very well is that a lot of people are in the bourbon industry, right? It's kind of a saturated space. You probably know many, many brands. And ultimately, one of the reasons that I moved over from a very established set of brands to Blue Run is the fact that they were doing things so differently. From the bottle itself, please, if you get a chance, pick this up if you haven't already. You will feel this is like one of the heavier bottles you've ever felt, French cut glass. They use precious metals. They were using like actual gold and silver to like screen print basically on these bottles. And the butterflies themselves are beautiful expressions from our original creative director that absolutely, I don't know if she mentioned this, but he has a very amazing job. I think I can say he basically is the head men's designer for footwear at Nike. And so he was the one that designed this entire bottle. That's why it's so unique. And I'd say it's unisex, right? Like, so men and women both think this is nice. And it's just a different take on a kind of an older thing, right? Like bourbon's very historical. And so they said, I want to take bourbon and just bring it into the 21st century. I want to do something a little differently. So they did take from the fashion industry. They took from these various industries. And that's one of the reasons I joined, is they were just bringing fresh creativity and like fresh perspective into somewhere that people have been receptive. So people were ready for it, for the most part. So definitely pick that bottle up and get a feel for it yourself. And then just in general, the brand stands for kind of inclusivity, youthfulness, and it's very aspirational. So there was a large demographic not being spoken to. There were women, minorities, people of color that weren't being spoken to as much. And basically, Blue Run said, we want to include everyone. Why wouldn't we want to do that? And so that's near and dear to my heart. And another reason I joined ultimately. And it's been a heck of a ride. So let's go ahead and get into our first tasting. Who does have 2 in front of them? Does everybody have it? Great. Okay, we have one covered. So we're going to start with the lightest bourbon, and I'm going to give you some tips. I'm sure you guys are, taste bourbon a lot, but here's what I'm going to suggest. First of all, don't taste them. I personally would smell them all before I taste them. 70% of taste is smell, and once you start tasting, the smell will get a little distorted. Okay. If you want to add a little water, it won't hurt my feelings. I actually think it's a good idea. The water will change the profile. In general, when you add a little bit of water, I don't care what proof you start at, to bring out more of the middle and top notes, your lighter, like literally lighter molecules. So you're talking like your greener notes, your haze, your honey, the things that are kind of balanced. And the darker notes, the heavy notes like oaks and caramels and these types of things, those will tend to be suppressed a little bit the more water you add, so just for your knowledge. So we're going to drink in ascending order of proof for the most part. And the Reflection 2 is one of our chapterized flagships. So we have basically 3 flagships or 4 SKUs. This is one that is chapterized. So there is another expression of this. This is the second one that I did last year. And it is 100 proof, called Reflection 2. And actually, if you have 2, just for kicks, go ahead and spell them side by side. Even as an expert, someone that smells all day long, I think that side-by-side comparison to really see what one particular sample has. So I think that gives context when you put it next to something, right? So with Reflection 2, this is the part, I'd love to hear what you're smelling or even tasting if you decided to taste at this point. I want people to know you can't be wrong. Biochemically, we're all different, right? And so the experiences that you had as a child, the foods you were exposed to will influence what you taste today. So there's a very real aspect of like you as an individual and what you smell and taste versus me. Now, we might be smelling similar things, have different verbiage for it. Again, that's okay. I think people can find drinking or, kind of analyzing whiskey intimidating. And one of the things I like to help people do is it doesn't have to be intimidating. You can just, in fact, say obscure things, right? So does anybody want to yell out what they're smelling in Reflection 2? Vanilla, okay. Caramel, okay. Floral, yeah, I agree with that. Yes. Totally. Yep. Chrissy and I always say it's got a little orange in there. Yeah.
Who said orange peel? Wow, I'm surprised. No, I'm just joking. What does everybody else get on it? What do you get on that? You get a long finish on it? You get a short finish? Spice? No spice? Hot? Not hot? Short finish? What do y'all get on the finish? Deb? When you put water in it, it adds spice to it?
Yep, that can definitely happen. Yep. Yeah, and if you're one of those people that says, oh, I mean, if you're here, I'm guessing you're not necessarily like this, but sometimes people say, all I get is alcohol. If you're getting that ethanol, right, there's different types of alcohol. So I'm going to speak about ethanol specifically, the kind that makes you feel a certain way when you drink it. Go back to it 3 times. 1, 2, 3, not that fast. Smelling it, but after the 3rd time, the ethanol will equilibrate in your nasal cavity, and you'll be able to get to the aroma layers that are underneath it. Okay. So I agree with all your tasting notes.
So for those of you who've never tried Blue Run, raise your hand if you like that. So that's probably all of you then, right? It's good, isn't it? Yeah. To me, it's pretty different too than what I traditionally drink. Yeah. As a Kentucky bourbon, it's very different. I think it's lighter and it's got that citrusy, orange peel type florally. Yep. It's just different. Yeah. Really good though.
Thank you. This will be an outlier compared to the other ones because This one was not distilled by Jim Rutledge. Have we mentioned Jim Rutledge? The master distiller, who's I'm shadowing and he's teaching me everything he knows. Amazing man. So if you pick up number 2, does everybody have number 2? Raise your hand if you don't have high rye.
Ever have number 2?
That one is 4 years old. Yes. And that's a great segue into the second one because high rye, and it's misprinted, I'm sorry, it's 111 proof. This was in existence prior to me. This was the original flagship that they came out with. And it was Jim's, one of Jim's babies. And one of the first things I said, and I came from Wild Turkey, right, where most of the liquid that I used, I mean, I blended Russell Reserve 13 in Christmas. I blended, you know, all sorts of, like, they have an older stock inventory, right? Jim's stuff, so when he retired in 2015 from Four Roses, he went and did some retirement projects. And he, we were lucky enough to be able to purchase a lot of the liquid he distilled for his retirement project at Castle and Key. So the thing about Castle and Key is they're less automated. Did I just lose my, okay, sounded like I lost my sound. With that comes good and bad, right? So you get more, for a blender, I love it because I get more like differences, and I look for differences. I need those differences when I'm blending a lot of times. When it comes to blending new LTOs, things that, you know, like true innovation. And so Jim did his magic over at Castle and Key. We were lucky enough to be able to purchase all the liquid that he distilled in those years. And one of the first things I said was, this smells, this is minimum of 4 years old. This smells older and tastes older. I'm sure you'll agree. Like, it's just got more going on than a lot of younger whiskeys. Part of that is there's a higher rye content in the mash bill. It's just 65, 35. And so you'll get that spice on the nose. Compared to one, if you still have some, and you'll see there's just a little more depth to this one, a little more of those kind of brown notes. So the way that a piece of toast tastes differently when you toast it versus eating it, you know, untoasted. So what kind of things are we smelling and tasting on high rye? Butterscotch, okay, I like it. No, I like it, yeah. Sorry, who said? Minty, okay. Licorice, yeah, I can see that.
Jack, were you eating licorice on the way over here?
Thank you.
Jack was my college roommate. He'd always have a licorice bag next to his on his bedstand.
Really? I love that. Yeah, no, I get that. But which these are all notes that you typically find in 6, 7, 8+ year old bourbon. So it's very interesting.
What's the proof on it again?
111.
111.
Yeah.
It's not cast strength though, is it?
No, it's not.
And how big of a batch would this be, would you say?
Approximately 200 barrels.
So it's a big, well, it's
Relatively large.
It's not small for sure, yeah.
Yeah. And most of these barrels are either a number 3 or number 4 char for those that are interested in knowing that. And this is, I think that this drink's not as hot as 111. Like, if I didn't tell you that, you didn't see it on the paper, like, you'd probably think it was a little bit lower. It doesn't, like, burn your face off when you drink it, which is good.
Shayla, we've got a question from,
Sure.
Facebook Live.
You said it, there wasn't sure, but Jim Rutledge, is he retired now from the Blue Run brand?
No, not technically.
Okay.
No. Yeah. Yeah, no, he's still, he loves whiskey. Like, he'll never retire from it as far as I know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. The founders actually regret naming this high rye because most people think it's a rye whiskey. It's a bourbon. It's a misnomer. It's a high rye bourbon, over 51% corn. You know, 65% corn. It just has a higher rye content than most bourbons that you see on average in Kentucky. So, and
I'm sorry, did you say what the rye percent was?
30%.
Oh, it's really high rye.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah. So I think once you go with the higher rye, hard to go back, personally. I think it's back to sweet corn, you agree? Yeah, it's like, it's okay. Certain brands, people love that, but you work your way into something like this.
So what do you all think about this? What do y'all think? I thought by the name it was also a rye whiskey. So until you just said that, I didn't know.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
What did you say, Brennan? I think that's a good sign.
Yeah.
All right, quick straw poll. We've had Reflection 2 was our first sample. We've had the high rye second. If you like the first expression, Reflection 2 best, raise your hand. Okay, I think I know where this is going. What about, how come that whole table is the same way? Y'all are talking back there. All right, who liked the high rye better? Okay. Here you go.
Yeah, it is. They are. It's more kind of classic bourbon in a way. Two different occasions. I mean, so y'all just tasted Reflection 2. Reflection 1 tastes a lot like high rye, but it was 95 proof. So you saw there's differences. So if you can find Reflection 1, pick up a bottle. And just for reference, you guys know, because I love aesthetics. The silver, I think, is gorgeous. This is Reflection 2. The mirrored, I thought, one of the prettiest expressions that Devin put out. And then high rye is the iridescent butterfly. And just for kicks, raise your hand, or you don't have to. If you have a spiritual connection to a butterfly, raise your hand. Yeah, I know.
Hold on a second. Explain what that means. I love butterflies, but I don't think of them spiritually, though.
Well, a lot of people, I've seen people just break down in tears when I talk about butterflies. I think change or, having lost somebody, I think a lot of us see that in butterflies. So, that's another beautiful aspect. I don't know if that went into this when it was designed, but it resonates with a lot of us. So, something else neat about the brand.
Shaylin, you probably said it again. Each different expression has a different color, butterfly, and
yes, that's right. It's gotten really creative. Chrissy mentioned John McKnight. He was one of the original.
Listen up in the back, everybody. Get loud, please.
He is the original founder. He's been on board with the team since the beginning. He's an amazing artist. And with a team this small, he basically has creative license to, for this expression, we're going to do a tie-dye butterfly, or he'll literally in his garage come up with a new technique. So we actually just did a All-American blend that's on the market. I think you can find it online. Christy, is that right? All-American? Yeah, and it's a beautiful red, white, and blue, kind of in honor of, the Olympics and Labor Day and that type of thing. So. All right, let's move on to Emerald 2, which is a rye. Does everybody have Emerald, the third one?
And I tell you what, let's take a quick break if you don't mind.
Okay.
Let me take over here for a second. I'm going to introduce the guest. And as always, I want to thank my. So thank you for that. I'm getting updates. I'm going to read you an update from the Henderson Habitat for Humanity. They were here at the last event. And by the way, Shaylin, I got a text yesterday from Caleb at Brown-Forman, because he was our guest speaker a month ago. He goes, we went to high school together. Or maybe was it middle school or high school? He said they grew up together. You all saw Caleb with Brown-Forman. How about that? Okay, so Henderson Habitat. Has anybody here purchased a ticket for the largest? So Glenna, we've got a few out there. I've got one. There's 850 left. And they've sold out 5 years ago, and they expect to. So the largest bourbon raffle in Kentucky, at least historically. So they're doing really well, and they're a big sponsor of the club. And let me introduce you to another sponsor of the club, the Art of Bourbon. Are you all familiar with the Art of Bourbon? Raise your hand if you are. Well, you're getting ready to be. So Mark Abrams, a great friend, and the chair of the Art of Bourbon, which is for the Speed Art Museum, the Art of Bourbon. We're going to get at the connection to the art. Got it. Okay, Mark, come on up and tell us about what you're getting ready to do here in early September.
It's considered to be one of the greatest regional art museums in the country. So outside of New York, Chicago, we have one of the finest art museums right here in Louisville, Kentucky. There's close association with the University of Louisville as well, and it's been around for generations. We started 8 years ago with a bourbon auction, and it has since become the largest charity bourbon auction in the world. So we have it. It'll be September 12th. I'll hand out a little card that'll have a QR code on there so you can go to it and look. But I wanted to give you guys a preview of what some of the things that you'll be seeing in the auction. I brought a couple of bottles just because I thought they were cool. First one is a very old Fitzgerald bottle, 8-year-old, bottle dumped in, barreled in 1958, bottled in 1966. So this is available.
We're going to raffle that off at the end of the event. You must be present to win.
Oh, I like that. Now, I'm guessing most of you have no idea what this is. It's called Golden Wedding. It's a brand that started in the 1890s. It was bought by the Shenley Corporation, which at one point in time owned probably half the distilleries in the United States. But they did a unique thing here. They came up with something called Golden Wedding, and it's a blend of 5 different whiskeys, all of which are at least 5 years old. Now, half of these whiskeys come from the famous Joseph Finch distillery in Pennsylvania, which was known for making some of the finest rye in the world. The other half of the whiskeys come from this little distillery by Frankfurt company called Frankfurt, Kentucky, called George T. Stagg. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. So it is a blend. It is mostly rye, but there's bourbon and there are other whiskeys in here. It's a blend of 5 different ryes. It was bottled in 1941.
Ron, that was year you were born, I think, 41.
And lastly, I don't know if you all have ever been to Cork and Barrel before in Covington, Kentucky. Familiar? Right as 71, 75 goes over, you get up the first exit, it is right there. Well, they were bourbon before bourbon was bourbon. So they were pushing, promoting, and the biggest advocates as a retailer in the world back in the 70s when the world was falling apart. Nobody wanted bourbon. They were pushing bourbon. 80s and 90s, of course. But they did something for the bicentennial of our country, 1976. They put up in 1959 Willet Distillate from the original Willet distillery. And it's a 16-year-old bourbon for the bicentennial of our country. There are only 3,000 bottles of this that were ever produced. My guess is there might be 3 left in existence in the world. This will be at the auction. I've already got, a friend of mine said, I told it to him, like, you have a $10,000 bid.
Mark, when you told me you were coming, I thought this was part of the drawing today.
No.
Just the auction.
So, other thing is, I will caution you all. Look, this is a charity auction, and you could go online and bid, but it's a charity auction. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go out and be able to steal a bottle or get a cheap bottle, you're not going to do that. But if you want to give some money to the Speed and support a great philanthropic endeavor and get a bottle in the meantime, this is a great opportunity for you to do so. I will say though, that every year, I've been sharing this now for 4 years, every year, there are always a few lots that get sold. I'm like, that was a pretty good deal. So you can, if you follow it online or if you want to attend, it is a great event. Food's great. The bar is worth going for it alone. It is like a candy land of different bourbons and choices. It's unbelievable.
Is it possible the big Bourbon Club lot that I donated would be the lowest bid of all of the bourbon?
No, it will not. But I did want to read off. I brought, because we have about 34, 35 lots. So I wanted to give some highlights of what some of the things are. And speaking of Big Bourbon Club, Steve was nice enough to donate a Big Bourbon Club membership, 3 bottles of barrel picks, and a table of 8 to the Victor's Tasting. So all of that is included. But some of the other auction items we have will be a Green River barrel, the full barrel, a Bardstown Bourbon Company barrel. They are very generous with us this year. We happen to have from this company called, it's Van Winkle. And we have a full 6-bottle vertical, including the rye, all signed by Julian Van Winkle. Wow. So that will be the auction. We have a 1960s Old Fitzgerald, 1849, which is an 8-year-old. We have a 1947 Old Forester, 100 proof that was done specifically for a gentleman named David Corbin, who at the time was one of the largest auto dealers in Ohio. It's kind of cool. We have one lot is 2 Old Forester birthday bourbons, one 2012, one 2016. We have a King of Kentucky as well. We also have another lot that's birthday bourbon, President's Choice, and the 117 series one.
This is pretty fun.
We have a great Hard Truth experience. They're donating. Anybody ever been up to Hard Truth? It is a really cool natural game. You're going to choice one of the greatest campuses you go to. You get to go, spend a night on the spend a night on the campus, do their trail tours, which is unbelievable, and then you get a quarter barrel. You get to do a whole barrel selection for a process of which you end up with a quarter of the barrel. They'll bottle it for you and ship it. 15 Stars is donating 9 bottles of the most collectible bourbons. Ed Lee dinner. Ed Lee is one of those creative chefs. Dinner for 8 for your friends, and you happen to have a private bourbon concierge of myself and Fred Minnick for the event. 1991 Blanton's. I'm giving some Rabbit Hole, Jefferson's, and Smooth Ambler will be giving their group. They're digging into their vaults.
Hey, Mark, would most of these be donated?
All of them.
They're all donated. You're not purchasing.
None of them are.
And so I said something wrong earlier. I thought Habitat was the biggest. You're the biggest in the world, not just Kentucky. How much money will you raise for this?
So Habitat is the biggest raffle.
Raffle. Thank you.
And actually, I take that back. We're going to probably do. Last year we did about $350,000. Well, we had a bottle of 1998 Pappy Van Winkle that sold for 35, which was the very first year that Pappy Van Winkle came out, which Julian also signed. And it went for $35,000. Yes. Real quick, I'll finish up here with just some cooler things. A 1991 plant, the Rabbit Hole, Jefferson Reserve, and Smooth Ambler, the Pernod Ricard family. They're going to put together, they're grading their vaults, and so we'll have some Jefferson's Presidential, we'll have some old Smooth Amblers that are from the MGP days and the age ones, and some Rabbit Hole, again, highly collectibles. And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go quick.
No, this has actually been the greatest 2-minute presentation you've ever given. Steve, I need 2 minutes. I only need 2 minutes.
Victor's 11 bottle of package, including Victor's 10, Victor's Rye, and 3-bottle case of Bomberger and Shanks. Maker's Mark. I do have to say one thing about this. They're doing something very cool. Maker's Mark is donating a barrel, a private select barrel. Anybody ever been on a private? Obviously, you all do one, but anybody actually been to it for and done it? It is maybe the best distribution program. So they're doing that. And the deal is, Maker's Market's taking 200 of those bottles. They're donating to the Speed. The Speed is then going to go out to local artists in the community and have them paint, decorate, develop those bottles into works of art. We're then going to sell them for the next 2 years through the Speed and through different auctions. But as you all know, if you go to the Maker's Market, they make more than 200 bottles. It's 240 to 246. So anything over 240, the people who win the auction get to go through the barrel stage selection, get to do the whole process, and they end up with all the bottles that are over 200 bottles. So that's a really cool thing, and everything else.
So why don't we do this, Mark? Why don't we do this? Repeat one more time what's most important. If they want to purchase a ticket and attend, and if they don't, how could they support us online?
So online, I'm going to hand out, I've got little, slips of paper here that have QR code that go to the Art of Bourbon site. And so you can bid online there. You can buy tickets, and you can do whatever you want. The catalog is for this year is not up yet because we haven't finished it. It'll be done probably the end of next week. So look for that then. But I pretty much gave you a highlight. There'll be a total of 34 to 35 lots.
So, Mark.
Sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Tell me when I'm close enough.
Look to your right.
Put it in front of your face.
But it's upside down.
Don't move it.
Whoa, too close. Back.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So, Mark, I should know this. The namesake of the Speed Museum, is that J.B. Speed?
Yes, it is J.B. Speed.
So what was he famous for?
Speed was a great industrialist and developer in town.
And who was his best friend? Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, Abraham.
And he is the one who introduced Mary Todd to Abraham. Can you imagine a Monday morning sales meeting with the sales manager here? It'd be awesome. Mark is a dear friend, and he's Louis Straub grown-up best buddy, so we like to have fun.
And I will tell you that the Speed family is still involved. Bruce Speed, who's fifth generation Speed, is still involved and on board with the Speed team. So,
Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate being a partner with the Art of Bourbon. By the way, do you all know where J.B. Speed grew up in Louisville? Ron, you can't tell you. I know you know. I know the Callahans know. Well, at least the dad and the uncle do. You don't. Does anybody know? Farmington. Have you been to Farmington? Raise your hand if you've not been to Farmington. You've got to go. It's right behind Sullivan on Bardstown and 264. It is absolutely incredible. But that's the home. And actually, Thomas Jefferson was there. Lincoln was there, but that was the home of J.B. Speed. You're breaking up, Jack. Be quiet. Don't correct me. I thought Joshua was JB. Are they brothers? So the father was best friends with Lincoln. And Joshua was best friends with Lincoln. I think that's what I was saying. Okay, let's get back to bourbon. I knew it was one of the Speed boys. All right, let's get back to bourbon. Jalen, are you ready to take control of this meeting again?
Yes.
All right.
Ready.
All right. Does everybody have 3? Emerald 2. Okay, great. This is the bottle for Emerald 2. Feel free to come look at it afterwards. It's like a very light green, inspired by the emerald jewel. This is the second. So this is a rye, by the way, rye whiskey. Jim Rutledge Distilled. We did 2 releases of this. This is the second one. We did one in, let's see, 22. And then this is the one released in 23. The first one I did, it was barrel proof because it just was absolutely best at barrel proof. This one, the inventory was a year older. When I blended it, I tried it a bunch of different proofs. 109.7 was the sweet spot. So, and even if you say, hey, I'm not a rye person, I'm curious what you'll say about this because, again, Jim Rutledge and his magic, it is often called a bourbon lover's rye because there's something very approachable about it. Now it's been sitting out. I'll give it like a little swirl, you know, not a big one, but and it does change as it sits out, as I'm sure you guys have picked up on. But this is a very interesting one. So it won a lot of awards, and I think it's very unique to me. So like if you take one sip, you'll have to go back for 2 or 3 because it's just so different, and it's got aspects to it that are like not quite easy to put your finger on. So what kind of notes are you getting in this one? Chocolatey. Okay, yeah, could see that.
Candy corn.
Candy corn.
Sat next to the liquor on the best day.
That's hilarious. Do I have anyone who really likes rye in here? Okay, great. How do you think it compares to like a normal rye? Would you say it's slightly more approachable, a little less maybe spicy? Yeah. So, in fact, this story I like to tell, if Jim doesn't mind. He's his own worst critic, right? Like, you know, a lot of us are really hard on ourselves. He's one of those people. It's probably why he's so good at what he does. And he had told me that he wasn't, you know, a lot of what he distilled during this time period, he wasn't like, oh, I could have done better, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things I like to do, because there's the power of the mind, I like to do things blind. And I have so many examples of this, but one great example is I sent Jim a sample of this in 22, and I didn't tell him what it was. I didn't tell him it was a bourbon. I didn't tell him it was a rye or anything. I just said, what do you think? And of course, he got down to it, like the most detailed tasting notes, and he calls me up and he's like, Shaylin, I really like that. and he said, is that a high rye bourbon? And I said, no, it's actually the rye that you distilled. And I've never fact checked this, but I know you guys like to say that it was the first rye that he ever actually distilled. I think that's true. I need to ask him. I've heard that time and time again, but he was blown away. He's like, I did that? Like that was the rye that I did. So it goes to show you even from an expert like Jim, it is this kind of approachable rye. So cheers. It is, I think it's 1288. I think. So 80% rye. You get that spice in the end.
I get the finish for me is different than a traditional rye. I get a kind of a peppercorn, little. It's certainly spicy, but kind of a peppery finish on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'd say it's got a lot of like the middle notes. So
It's easy
like
to
versus
drink.
high rye is more like bottom heavy, and this would be more middle note heavy. No mid palate? You're talking about timing. I'm talking about the layers of notes. Yeah, for sure. Right. Than most ryes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, higher proof, right? 109.7, that's not nothing. And it goes down pretty easily, so.
So Hal Ginsberg, are you awake back there? Hal. Bullshit, excuse me. Hal, what did you all get back there on it? Anything? Ben, I don't want to put you on the spot. What'd you all get on that? Brennan?
Nice. Okay.
Ben, anything from you? Yeah, there you go. Maybe a little cheddar. All right, so let's switch gears for a second. Have you all watched the Olympics? What the hell is that? Raise your hand if that is the dumbest thing you've ever seen in your life for the Olympics. Brian's pissed off because he was a weight class champion in Ohio for breakdancing. That is not Olympics. All right, we're not going there. You'll get me banned again on TikTok. Okay. Any questions of Shaylin on? So I got a question a few minutes ago on Facebook Live. In terms of the distillation and the bottling, it's in Bardstown. Do we know where that is? Is that announced? Who makes for you and how that's done?
Yeah, so we've been a mix of secondary market, you know, like for instance, the liquid that we bought that Jim produced. And then we've been distilling our own liquid since 2021 at Bardstown Bourbon Company. So Jim Rutledge, contracted master distiller, and you can go into there and basically personalize, customize what you want to do. And they've been wonderful partners. I have nothing but great things to say about Bardstown Bourbon Company.
So, but we won't see that distillate for several years, I assume, right?
Yeah, some of it's getting there, almost 4, and then we have the Coors inventory that I now have.
Okay,
right?
so question, listen up, everybody. So you're making your own distillate. It's not ready to go to market. It's 3.5, whatever the age is. How often do you taste that? When it's too young to go to market, but you're getting ready to.
Realistically, as one person in charge of 15,000 barrels, like not often enough. Probably ideal to do starting about 6 months old, every 6 months or once a year.
So once or twice a year. That's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
And you probably see a big difference, don't you, in the 6 months?
You can. In fact, one of the things I learned that was really still kind of blows my mind. Again, I'm used to working with Boulder Liquid at Wild Turkey. We did a series called the Flight Series, so keep an eye out for that. We did one in 22. It's 6 micro batches. Basically, I took between 2 and 5 barrels and blended them together 6 times. So there's 6 expressions, and they're very nuanced, right? And okay, I totally forgot where I was going with this. Sorry.
Well, you were talking about the Flight Series and
Yeah.
the micro batches. In fact,
What was your question? Sorry.
I forgot that too.
I haven't had that much with me, I promise.
So Shaylin and I, we practiced this all last night. I was asking
thank
about
you
when
so
you
much.
taste those barrels
Yes.
before they're.
So at the 4-year mark, I found some barrels. They were January's of 2018. They were all amazing. Like I built one of the 6 expressions based around this profile. It was like this real, like just like kind of sherry-like in this 4-year-old. And so I said, okay, I'm going to use a few of these. I'm going to save them. Wait 1 year, because I expected that note to just be like off the charts in year 5. It's gone. It is like gone, which blows my mind and goes to show that there is constant chemistry occurring. We understand a lot of it. We don't fully even understand. There's so much, it's so complex what's going on in that barrel. I mean, you know, and I do a whole talk on where I get extremely nerdy about like where flavor comes from the grains all the way through to distillation, through aging, and like the magic that's occurring in the barrel. So that was very telling to me to see that note disappear at year 5. I think it's probably some sort of oxidative reaction that, you know, kind of dissipate, like basically took away that note. But we'll never know. But if you can find Marrakesh Market, that's the name of the Flight Series, that particular expression in the Flight Series, you can taste that note in all its glory because I built a whole profile around it.
So I opened a Flight Series 2 Miami Sunset last night.
Okay, yeah.
It's incredible.
Oh, so glad you like
Incredible.
it. Yes.
Shaylin, would you repeat the question for everybody, please?
She asked, so the Marrakesh Market was the 22 Flight expression that I built this note around. You can find it still. Anyway, that was very, again, I'm still learning. I'm 11 years into this, and like the fact that that note disappeared was very interesting to me. Certain notes get louder over time, and apparently go away.
So I'm back to the Olympics. I can't help the breakdown. Is this the men's or the women's division? Oh, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. It's a joke. Okay, take control of your meeting here, Shaylin.
All right.
All right, so we've had 3. We've had 3. If you like Reflection 2, our first, as your favorite so far, raise your hand. So we've got some pretty steady people that say, okay, number 2, the High Rye. Uh-oh, so number 3 stole some hearts here, the rye whiskey.
Okay.
Actually, a little bit light. A couple people didn't vote. Brian voted with 2 arms, and some people didn't vote at all. So I'd say number 2 by a nose so far.
Yeah.
But it's a horse race, and we're going down the stretch. We have one more to go. Scott, what do you think? You good?
Now, number 4 is going to be the most different. So does everybody have trifecta? Yeah. Okay, great. I'm going to show you the bottle before I forget. It's a 117.1 proof. This butterfly, in case you're curious, is made out of pewter, which is the fusion of 3 different types of metal, which is apropos for trifecta. So this one, and again, I like my past is blending ages. So I like truly missed blending, higher ages. My team a couple years ago, they informed me that they bought 20 totes of 6-year-old and totes. So it had been dumped. I've not really worked with totes. And I was like, okay, I think I maybe got to taste it and it wasn't even, they basically made the decision. I'm like, oh, well, I hope it's good and I hope I can use it because I'm sure you spent a lot of money on it. And then they're like, well, I want you to bottle it. And I was like, absolutely not. So my perspective on things is like a single barrel, great, okay, but like most things can always be made better by the addition of other things. So even a great single barrel, like, and I know there's a time and a place for that, but even if it was great 6-year-old, right, like you can layer things on it to make it better because we can always make things more balanced. And so I said, let me look at our inventory, see what we have, and see if I can make it any better. And basically, first of all, the totes, when I tried to locate them, they were in Spain. Still don't know how that happened, but had to wait for them to get shipped from Spain on, a big ship. And it was this very built up moment of tasting it because they've been sitting in the hot sun and like plastic totes and like, you just don't know what it's going to taste like. And it was fine. Thank God. So what I did was I played with the inventory. I wound up taking some 8 and 9-year-old, layering it into the 6-year-old. For those that are curious, the 9-year-old was actually, I wound up putting more 9 than 8. You'd think like typically the way it works, generally speaking, the older it is, the less you're going to put in a blend because it's going to have aspects that are just like will dominate the blend. But in this case, the 8-year-old, like we only needed a little bit, and the 9-year-old was one of the star players. So this is a blend of the 3. And honestly, this has won pretty much every award that it can win in the industry. So enjoy.
So one more time, the three different expressions, the ages of the 3?
6, 8, and 9.
6, 8, and 9.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be 2/3, 6, roughly?
Sorry?
Would it be 2/3 of the 6-year-old?
No, not quite. Not quite.
Less than 2/3, maybe?
Yeah.
What do y'all think? What do you get on that? James, anything?
Thank you.
Isn't it good? I get more viscosity on this than all of them. It's got a real creamy, thicker mouthfeel.
Yeah, right. Kind of that age coming through.
And for me, is it with a really high proof, which I prefer, it's not hot at all.
Right.
Do you all get that, or do you think it's hot?
Yeah. Now.
Sandy, question. Everybody show some love for Sandy. No, I meant just be quiet. Oh, Hal woke up. Did y'all hear that? Sandy was comparing it between an icing, like a cake icing, and a buttercream, which is not as sweet, is not as rich. It's more rich. The buttercream is more rich. It's interesting. Joanne, you agree? And Joanne made cakes for Hal. What do y'all think? All right, I've heard 3 people say it's my favorite. So let's go backwards, 4-1. If this is your favorite, raise your hand. Holy Toledo. I'm no math teacher, Doug Slaymaker, but that's a quorum there.
Hey, good job making those.
Isn't that good?
What does it retail for?
What about for Big Bourbon?
$179.
Well made.
Yeah, it's not for lack of trying.
No, one thing,
Chrissy's camped out in my front yard for 6 weeks now, but I haven't let her in yet.
I want a couple people nod when they say I saw you nod that it was kind of spicy to you. I want to add
Everybody
one
listen
thing.
up. Everybody listen up, please.
Some of these barrels were from the upper floors of the warehouse, which we could get whole thing on where in the warehouse. When they're up in the upper floors, they tend to be spicier. We call it cloying.
Okay, say it again. When they're on the upper floors, they tend to be spicier.
Spicier. So
Ray, did you know that? Then listen up. This is great information.
the water molecule is smaller than the ethanol molecule. It gets pushed out of the barrel. It's so hot up there. You concentrate your alcohol. So in general, you're going to find much higher proofs on the upper floors than you will in the floors. And because of that, think about making an extract, especially if you used to bake and stuff. The more ethanol or alcohol you have, it's going to extract more things out of the wood. So that's why you tend to get the spicy aspects of the wood. So it's really a trade-off. It can definitely dominate a profile. So when I'm blending, I try to do less of that. This had a bit more of that in there, and you're probably picking up on those spicier aspects. So we did a whole PR, it's called like a wood spice, basically. So I think all of you are right. It's not overly proof hot, but there is some spice from the wood itself. Cloying.
Can you spell it?
CLOYING.
I don't know that. I'm not familiar with that.
It's kind of.
Well, I went to Trinity. Sorry.
Yeah, I know there's these terms, I don't know. It's part of. Ooh, perfect.
It's maybe why I've never heard of it, because I've never. I guess spice and brute doesn't create that effect.
Polarized or polarizing in a way, love it or hate. Like cilantro, polarizing. People love it or they hate it. Anyway, so
Shaylin, I've got a question
Yeah.
from Facebook Live. How many expressions do you typically like to release in a year, and what's on the horizon? What do we look for in year 3, year 5 from now from Blue Run?
I personally am of the opinion fewer, better things. So I would rather do innovation wise. I'm not into necessarily finishing and things like that have kind of been done to saturation. I'd rather do things that it would take me years to do, but it's different. So that's my personal belief. Now I work for a company that might not, always endorse that, but that's where I come from. I'd rather do fewer, better things. So in a year, I would preferably not put out more than 3 LTOs, limited time
Do
offerings.
you consider all of these LTOs that you release?
No, the only LTO up here would be technically the trifecta, the last one we just tasted.
So LTO meaning there's a limited amount, there's 10,000 bottles or whatever the number is, and that's it forever.
Like a McDonald's McRib back in the day, that was an LTO,
Yeah.
but they kept bringing it back.
The one they released 16 times?
Right, that one.
Yeah.
So that was a successful LTO.
Have you ever heard the McRib analogy with a really good bourbon? Brennan used to drink bourbon with McRibs. It makes sense, right? So what about 3 and 5 years? Where do you see Blue Run?
I think that so they got their start with these drops, these LTOs that sold out right away. And I'd love to see us continue that fewer, better things, and where it's strictly intentional in what's released. So, and I know firsthand The liquid can be amazing, but if the marketing's not great and there's not a great story, it doesn't resonate. I've seen it happen time and time again, and vice versa. So there's got to be this synergy between great liquid, great story. Flight is a great example, the one I mentioned earlier. It continues to sell out right away because it's really cool. It's named Miami Sunset. It's named these places that I think like part of why it resonates is it transports you somewhere. Maybe you've never been to Marrakesh, but like now you feel like you have. It's the same thing when you spray on some perfume or cologne. Like I think we wear those things to transport us somewhere, to pretend like we're somewhere that we're not. And I think really great storytelling can do the same thing. So.
Thank you. Questions out there? Doug Slaymaker.
Thank you. No, it's not. It's not. But it didn't have, I think it wasn't this, we didn't have the seasonal aspect, and then the masters, I guess we had the same master distiller. It's weird because we like produce at Bardstown Bourbon Company, so I don't know how that would be technically classified with like the one master distiller thing. Right. Oh yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
All right, we've got a question in the back. Ed Allen. Listen up, everybody.
Yeah. Great question.
So the question is, what do you define as micro in a micro blend? Did I hear that right?
Our former CEO at Blue Run, Mike Montgomery, he hated the fact that was undefined and people kind of abused the term, right? So like, I know at Wild Turkey we define small batches, 200 barrels or less, but that's not like a standardized term. So he came up with the term micro batch, which in our case refers to between 2 and 5 barrels per blend. That's our own internal definition that we'll stick to.
No.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So if you have 200 barrels, how many samples do you start out in the blending process?
It's a great question. He asked, if there's 200 barrels, how many samples will I look at? It depends on the lot code. Do you know what that is? So basically, sister barrels that were produced on the same day, will share the same lot code, and you can statistically be ensured that it's more similar. So if I have 3 lot codes and 200 barrels, I'll look at probably like 10 barrels from each. If they're consistent, my assumption is that all 66 barrels that I put, will be quite consistent. So I have like a methodical way of doing it, but it doesn't always scale up. And I only know that because in the past I've made the mistake of, not like them being markedly different when you go to actually dump it 6-9 months later.
And do you swallow or do you spit it out?
That's a great question too.
Hold on a second.
Wow.
I was looking at the next question. We've got Ben and we've got Matt. Sorry.
No, I'm going to keep it very professional. At Wild Turkey, this is funny. We would be in the sensory room, and so a big part of tasting is the entire experience. Okay, so the tour guides would walk by, and they would always say, "Now watch those people in there. They always will like make sure they spit it out." And then we would never. And then the tourists would be so confused. So no, it's a very integral part. You have to understand how, like, if it burns, I hate the word smooth. I'll never say that word. But if it doesn't kind of, linger, right? So it's an important part to it, in my opinion. But nothing is as important as smell. Nothing.
Just for the record, this is a Beam family member.
Oh, hi.
A Beam.
Great question. Lots of great questions. So she asked about, what you're eating. Yes, there's certain things. It depends on how seriously you're taking it. If I'm tasting that day, there's no sulfur. That means there's no onions, no garlic, no coffee, no cheese, absolutely no cheese, no fat. Anything that coats the tongue will distort your ability to taste. So anything super fatty, because what is fat? Fat is flavor. And how do we experience it? It coats our tongue. So that's going to distort the actual taste. I also, I taste everything ambient at room temp, because if you add ice in it, no issue, you know, it changes it. But just like, if that's how you like it, that's fine. But just know you're changing it. The same way that if you go get a Blizzard from Dairy Queen and you get M&Ms in it, I think we'd all agree that you don't really get the chocolate, right? You get the sensation, the crunch of the M&Ms, you get the sweetness, you get the sensation, but you're not getting the actual chocolate flavor, and it's very similar with whiskey. You'll just distort it a bit when you change the temperature. So as long as you're aware of that going into it, and I'm not going to tell someone not to drink coffee that day, you know, but like if you're doing intense notes, you might want to skip it.
Okay, so we have two questions, Ben, then Matt. Go ahead, Ben.
Tasting decision?
So let's repeat. That's a great question. He very seldom asks great questions, so go ahead and repeat that
one.
Okay, Matt, I think you're up.
No, I'd say we're pretty aligned. My boss told me one time when I was pretty new, and Grant, he did not come from the industry, as she said, okay? And he said, you're kind of glass half empty, you know, like you're like Jim, like you're pretty, because he wanted to like do something that wasn't technically going to be a bourbon. And I was like, just so you know, there's a legal definition of a bourbon, like we have to stay within these confines. So Jim and I are pretty aligned. I think we're both pretty picky. I'm picky with flavors. When I eat, I would say I'm not going to tell you I don't like it, but like I'm taking can't help but be like, oh, this tastes this way, or this tastes this. They use old oil for this. Like my brain is just constantly like taking in data around it. And I would say Jim is very similar. So we tend to be aligned, and we like similar things. So I wish I had a more, exciting story for you, but sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
Shayla may run for president one day because she got that right. Okay, Matt Lewis.
Okay.
So you work with Teflon Key, now you're working with Bourbon. Is there any plan to start your own distillery?
Yeah, no, that's not an asshole question.
I think the plans are already out there, right?
Yeah, so you can Google it. We have images out. We worked with one of the best architect firms in the world to create the vision of what we want it to be. So I can't say that it will eventually, like with everything being the way it is, we're not entirely sure when that will happen or what version of that rendering it will be, but definitely that's the plan, to eventually have our own distillery.
Do you believe it'll still be in Georgetown?
Yeah.
So that would be the home when it happens?
Yeah, I mean, we bought 100 acres, so yeah.
Okay, go look up it looks like an NIM pay or some type of, it's
amazing. It really is.
Unbelievable, the rendering of what they would love to build.
Yeah, yeah. Yay, yeah.
Well, hold on. Could you speak into the microphone? Okay. Any other questions?
Any other questions? There's been some great questions today.
All right, Mark.
I will say, you touched on my favorite bourbon tribute,
Oh, what's that?
which is when you go to the distillery, you're like, okay, we all know that alcohol evaporates at a lower temperature than water does. So if you think about it, as soon as it gets a little warm, the alcohol all starts to evaporate in the barrel. But over a period of time, the alcohol actually goes up. Why is that? And you had said because the water molecule is much smaller than the alcohol molecule, so it actually penetrates the barrel, whereas the alcohol barrel can't. Now, every now and then, a barrel will actually go up in water and down in alcohol. What does that tell you? You got a crack in the top of your barrel. Because the water is an opening large enough for the alcohol to escape that's allowing it to go out faster.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Great explanation.
Okay, I'm going to end it with my question.
Yeah.
And comment, and I'm going to introduce a friend real quick to come up and speak. But so Shaylin, an old friend of mine from fourth grade school is Peggy Stevens.
Yeah.
She was actually in kindergarten when I was in fourth grade. But we're old friends, and we've remained very close friends. Peggy will tell the story regularly how Peggy was, by the way, the first female bourbon master taster in the world.
She's a badass.
When she worked at Woodford Reserve in Brown-Forman 25 years ago. Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame, American Whiskey Hall of Fame. She's in all of that. But Peggy would tell the story that she will oftentimes go to a bar or a restaurant and they'll look to her husband, Ernie, who doesn't know a lot about bourbon, and say, well, what would you like and what would she like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you get that same treatment ever as a female where we're assuming that you know nothing about bourbon?
That's a rhetorical question. Yes, of course. Of course.
Speaking to the microphone, speak real loud.
No, I mean, I look young. I've always kind of, there's many things that, yeah, it's definitely a very real aspect, but I see it as a challenge, right? Like, I love, like, I don't know, I just love not proving people wrong, but no, like, a woman, of course, can be all things. And it's to me, it's not even a question. So, yeah, like Peggy, of course, I've experienced similar things, and
we're still making a lot of assumptions about if you're not.
People think like, oh, are you in sales? And there's obviously nothing wrong with sales, but they just go straight to that. And yeah, I've experienced it time and time again. One of the ways I guess combat that, or deal with it, and I've had to learn over time, is I'll just continue to assert myself in a conversation. I don't think it's intentional. I don't think people are doing it to be jerks, right? It's just these how we move through the world and like how we tend to see the world. We all do these types of quick judgments. So one of the ways I just assert myself is by making sure I'm in the conversation and speaking up a lot of times.
Are you seeing less and less of it as we get into 2000? Soon to be 24, 25, or?
It's better. I would say it's better. We've done a good job in bringing, more women and minorities and the various things we're trying to solve for into roles. But now I think it's a matter of elevating the voices. So make sure, if you're going to hire that person, make sure you want to hear their voice, So that's where I'd say where we're at now. But of course, it's gotten better. I'd say we have a long way to go, but like definitely gotten better.
You may not be familiar, maybe you are, but the mission of the Big Bourbon Club is it's for everybody.
Yeah.
And we're more really traditionally for beginners and helping people get through the journey wherever they are, but it's not a lot of experts. There are certainly some, like Sandy, who's got a question.
Perfect. I like that.
All right, everybody, give Shaylin a great round of applause. Chrissy, the Blue Run team, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Great job, you all. We greatly appreciate it.
Really fun.
So just a couple of headlines before I bring you up. Our next event will be, we're going to take September off with Bourbon Month, right? A lot going on there in Kentucky. But we have Michter's in October, and we have Grander Rum, the pick that I did down in Panama. They'll be here in November. So we've already booked Old Dominic for February. We have 15 stars next May. And I can't tell you about what's in between that, but I've got 3 or 4 really good brands distilleries you're going to want to hear about very soon. So keep that in mind. For those of you who came into the house that were not members, anybody still not a member of the Big Bourbon Club? You lying sons of bitches. Join, scan it. It's free. Okay. With that, I don't know if I mentioned we have barrel pick bottles for sale. Steve, go get them. Don't pull a hamstring. All right. Sean Herbig. I've known Sean for how long, Sean? Yeah, 50 years. A long time ago. But anyway, Sean and I have reconnected, and he's doing something really cool in the industry. And I've asked him to speak for about 2 minutes on what that is. Come on, Sean.
All right,
guys, I'm going to be super quick. My name's Sean Herbig. I just recently started a company called Bluegrass Bitters. We all know what bitters are, right? Anybody ever had an old fashioned? I'm sure you have, right? And we know that there's some big name bitters out there. I'm not going to mention them by name, but I think that we need to have some better bitters. I think we need to have some more authentic flavors. I think we need to have some Kentucky bourbon as the backbone of the bitters. So that's what you're going to find in Bluegrass Bitters. We are super early, but we expect to have product before Derby of 2025. So one of these open sessions that we've got in Big Bourbon Club, I'm hoping I can get back here with you guys and share our 5-spice orange, our barrel-aged cherry, our black walnut, which is a true black walnut, not an English walnut. And you know what else we got in this opening lineup? What we call a smoked simple syrup. It is an absolutely amazing product that'll put smoke in the glass, not just sitting on top of it. Absolutely amazing in your old fashioned, and I really do look forward to sharing that with you. Again, my name's Sean.
Cherry is amazing.
Yes, it is.
Sean, he was at my house the other day. I made him try it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
No, he's serious.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Again, my name is Sean Herbig. The product is Bluegrass Bitters. I look forward to coming back and sharing it with you folks.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, man. Okay, we have a couple of drawings here, so get out your raffle tickets. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Does everybody have a raffle ticket? Everybody have a raffle ticket? In a box truck or a package car? Okay. All right, Shaylin, you ready to draw? All right, we have 2 drawings. Must be present to win. You're not part of the executive committee anymore. Okay, here we go. 671. Michael. Let's go. No. Yes. There you go, sir. Here. So who wants to take a picture of it? Come here, Jack. Do you mind? Thanks for volunteering. I don't know how to use it, but I've got one. Yeah, no kidding. Well, we're 61 now. It's still in check. All right, squeeze in here. Come on. Thank you. All right, one more. You keep that. Thanks, Michael. The Louisville Bourbon Society, the oldest bourbon club in Kentucky or Louisville? The world. Literally. So the oldest bourbon club on planet Earth. All right, here we go. Last one. Sorry. I wasn't looking at how tall you are. 693. Melissa, come on, let's go. Must be present to win. Congratulations. You jump up there and I'll grab the gift. There you go. Yep. All right. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Will you take a couple pictures? Jalen. Thank you.